welcome to Salt City Knits Podcast, episode 2. I'm Emily, and today is the last day of February. Thank heavens. I'm so excited that spring will be coming hopefully soon. And I'm back today with some more knitting projects and fun crafty things to share with you. So thank you, first of all, to everybody who joined me for my first episode that I recorded last week. I absolutely did not expect so many wonderful comments and kind things that you have all said to me and shared with me. So thank you for that. And it was so great and fun. And so I'm back again. I have one finished object to share with you today, and then I think, 3 works in progress and a book recommendation at the end. So I hope you'll enjoy. First off, again, I just have to thank you for your great feedback and support in starting this podcast. It is kind of crazy. For those of you who may be new here, my sister and I have had a podcast together for 6.5 years called Meanwhile at the Castle. And we have absolutely loved that. But due to just our scheduling issues, we have both decided to start separate podcasts. And it's kind of crazy kind of starting over, you know. It's a different dynamic to be on my own and just one person here in front of the camera. It's also different to be starting over in gaining a following and so on. So I really appreciate anybody who has subscribed or commented or hit like or any of those things. So if you would continue to do that, that's so great. I want to share my first finished object, which is this cardigan I showed in progress last time. This is the Koivu Cardigan. And actually here, I'm going to first insert a little video to show what it looks like on, and then I'll tell you about it. All right, so that's the Koivu Cardigan on, and it has this beautiful lace panel in the back. And I knit these sleeves. I would call them bracelet length, although they did turn out a little bit longer. So they're right to my wrist. I probably will push them up a little bit as I wear them because I do like a cardigan. I mean, I like both. I like long cardigans, but for this one, a fingering weight, I like it where it's a little bit higher on my wrist. And so that was my intention. I have not added buttons yet, but you can see kind of this front, it's a little hard to show, this button band here. This is where the buttons will go, right there along the edge. And I'll anchor them right in here. So it's a narrow button band. Here's my, my buttonholes right there. There's one. So it's quite narrow, which I really like. This cardigan is by Meiju KP. Let me show you a picture of the pattern really quickly. I use my iPad for most of my patterns. So Koivu by Meiju KP. And I will link it in the description box below. It's knit in fingering weight yarn, and I used Yarn Café Creations Biscotti sock base, and this was a one-of-a-kind colorway. So it's not a non-repeatable that I was able to buy a sweater quantities worth. I knit the largest size, and I used the recommended needle, which was a size US 2.5 for the body and a US 2 for the ribbing. And let's see, what do I need to tell you? I used 5 skeins. In fact, I had just the teeniest little bit left. No, that's not true. I think I had it wasn't very much. It was a little ball of yarn, probably about that big, left of the 5th skein. in knitting this sweater. I did alternate skeins throughout, and one of the tricks that, I say tricks, the way that I alternate skeins when I'm not knitting in the round, so like on a cardigan where you're knitting flat, and where you've got a built-in front band, I don't want to be alternating my skeins on that front edge because I really want it to be finished really neatly there. And so I tend to pick a spot in the back, and this time I picked right here next to the lace panel to alternate my skeins. And you can see just the tiniest bit of difference there on this side compared to this side. But that doesn't bother me at all. So here's the inside of where it looks like where I alternated my skeins. That's the line of stitches where I kind of, you switch them, it's like catching a float, kind of where you wrap it around a little bit to lock those stitches in. And I've done that now. I think this is my third cardigan that I have used that method on. The first two were both cardigans by, what is her name? Oh my goodness. The cardigans were Menuet and another one. I'll have to look really quickly. Ririko is the name of the designer. So one of the patterns I did that with was called Menuet. Let's see, that's not a good picture of it. See if I can find a good picture of this cardigan. It was this one I knit, and I did the same thing where I alternated skeins right along that back panel, and then I've done one other one by her as well. And so that's the 3 cardigans that I've done that method with. This one I think is more visible. That seemed to be a little more visible than the other 2. And I'm not sure why. I think it's because there was some texture in the stitches in the other 2 patterns. But honestly, I can't remember. But I still prefer it there than to the front band. So I'm pleased with it. And I would probably use that method again. And then when I get to the sleeves and I'm alternating skeins in the sleeves, I use the helical knitting. And that works out really well. So I did that in this sleeve. In this sleeve, I did that for the first little bit. I think it was to right here, and you can tell where it changed. And then I ran out of my 4th ball of yarn. I finished up and just continued on with the rest of my 5th ball of yarn. And you can see how I ended up with some pooling there in that sleeve. Again, it doesn't bother me too much on the front. Here's what it looks like on the other side. I'm not overly worried about that, especially because I kind of tend to push my sleeves up a little bit, so they'll be a little bunched. And that is on the back of the sleeve. This is the front of the sleeve, which isn't quite as obvious. I mean, it is, you can see it, but it's not quite as obvious. And it just lasted for that little bit. But I'm still really happy with how this sweater fits. And I'm so happy that I have finished it. It has such a nice fabric. I didn't necessarily love that I was knitting this entire fingering weight cardigan in this largest size on a US 2.5, which is a 3mm needle. So that is a fairly small needle for a whole fingering weight cardigan. So it did take quite a while. However, the fabric is so nice that I'm really happy that I stuck with it. And I'm going to wear this today when I go. I'm teaching a class today, a writing class. And so I'm going to wear that when I go and teach my class, and I'm thrilled with it. And because I finished it, of course, I cast on another cardigan immediately. Why? Because I love to. That's why. I love knitting sweaters. I love knitting all things, but I really, really love knitting sweaters. And I think that's what attracted me to knitting from the very beginning. I was a crocheter to start with. And every time I would go look at patterns, I discovered Ravelry, and I would go look on Ravelry, and all of the things that I wanted to knit wanted to make were knitted. I would find these pictures and I'm like, why can't that be crochet? Well, because there's a reason. Crochet and knitting just are different. They lend themselves to different things well. And there are beautiful crochet sweater patterns too, but just not the ones that I was attracted to, and especially not 10 years ago when I was really getting into knitting. And so I think there's a lot more available now, but I just kept falling in love with the look of things that were hand knit. And that's what got me into it. So it was sweaters from the beginning. Okay, well, before I show you my new sweater, I want to give you some progress update on my Fragmentation Shawl. So this is a new pattern by Stephen West, and I am 2 wedges into it. And I love how it's turning out. It is so pretty and it's so fun and really quite simple to make, but I think it's going to make just such a beautiful, beautiful and wearable shawl. The Fragmentation Shawl is knit in wedges, as you can see. So you start with this little half moon, and then you take a few, put most of those stitches on hold, and take a few of those stitches and create this whole first wedge. And then you then do the next few stitches and knit the second wedge, attaching it to the first wedge as you go. The original version of this pattern, or the original kind of recommendation for it, is to knit it with kind of a fragmented look. So here is the picture that Stephen West, his original pattern. And so he's using 7 colors and then knitting so that you kind of get this cool, like, I think of it as like a spiral staircase, or almost like a seashell. It reminds me of the Fibonacci sequence, where you see the golden spiral kind of look to it. But I saw an example that he had shared on his Instagram of somebody who had knit this in black and then other colors and had lined up the black so that it didn't stair step. And I decided to do that using fingering weight Surrey alpaca. So you get that beautiful halo. I love that halo. Isn't it fun? And then I'm using scraps to make up all my colors. And I am just having so much fun with it. These are the kind of the color family I'm going for with my scraps. So everything from kind of mauves and pinks and tans to pale yellows. This bag is by Black Pearl Magic, and it was a gift from my sister Deborah for Christmas. And I just am really, really enjoying it. I have to say, knitting with Surrey or with mohair, and you have all of the extra kind of halo of the yarn. So, for example, here, you have all that halo. Sometimes it feels, I don't know what the right word is. The word that comes to mind is messy. It feels a little messy while you're knitting it because you get all this kind of, I don't know, it's not a clean stitch. You've got that halo there, if that makes sense. Oh, and I've got a broken nail. So sad. I'm gonna get those fixed tomorrow. But anyway, but it turns out so beautifully. I just absolutely love. And mohair is a little itchy for me. Not too bad, but a little bit. I knit the Birds of a Feather shawl by Andrea Mowry that is a mohair and fingering weight together. And I love that. And I wear it quite regularly, and it up to my neck, and it's fine. But this Surrey is even softer, which is really wonderful because normally I find alpaca too itchy, but Surrey is not. It's just so lovely. So I'm really enjoying that. And I had suspected that it would be quite, I don't know, I call it popcorn knitting, where you just want to knit another section, you know, just one more. And it definitely is that way. And the longest rows you ever have are this long. So unlike big, you know, this is going to be a really big kind of half circle shawl, but you're never going to have all of those stitches on the needles at once. So that makes it really fun. So you can just kind of start, and it's a little bit more. Oh, just one more color, just one more stripe. So look how big that's going to be. If this is the center, that's how big, you know, that's half the wingspan there. It's going to be a lovely large shawl. Oh, it's so much fun. And I think especially once I was adding in the second wedge, I could really start to see how it was going to turn out, how it was going to look as it grew. And I got even more excited about it. And yeah, I'm really loving this. Definitely ready to cast or to begin wedge number 3. So isn't that fun? So by the way I chose my yarns, this calls for 7 skeins of yarn, the original pattern again, but it calls for around 300 yards of each of those 7 colors. So I figured I needed a total of 2,100 yards altogether. And so I gathered up a bunch of different scraps, and I just started weighing them because they're all fingering weight. And so some fingering weight yarns could go up to like 460 yards for 100 grams. Some like 75, 25, 4-ply fingering weight yarns can be up to that. Whereas a lot of them hover right around the 400 yards. For example, the sweater that I showed you in Biscotti Sock by Yarn Café, that base is 430-ish yards to 100 grams. So to keep it, the math simple and err on the side of caution, I figured 400 yards to 100 grams. And then I just weighed out my yarn until I had, I think I totaled up, sorry, my mind just went blank. So I'm looking for 2,100 yards total. And I think I weighed out 400 grams of scraps, which would be about 1,600 yards of scraps based on that 400 yards to 100 grams. Does that make sense? And then I figured that I would need more than half would be made up by the Surrey alpaca, because I am beginning my wedge and ending my wedge in Surrey. That means I have more Surrey alpaca stripes than I do colorful stripes. And so I mean, this 400 grams of scraps is more than enough, is basically what I was saying. I realized I had oodles, and so I would make up the difference with the Surrey. And in the end, I'll still have leftovers. I won't finish all those scraps up. But I will, I'm guessing I'll probably use approximately 3 skeins of this Surrey alpaca. And this has just over, it's just under 400 yards to 100 grams in this fingering weight Surrey alpaca. So, I think I will use 3 of these, to make up the rest of the fabric. But I did have, I had a whole, what am I trying to say? I had purchased that wholesale, when I was running the Yarn Brary, my yarn dyeing business. So I had several skeins of that undyed yarn, that Surrey alpaca. So I knew I had plenty. So basically that's kind of how I just judged, do I have enough of this? And I did. So in the end, I will kind of let you know what I end up using. And yeah, let's go from there. I should weigh these too. I haven't weighed these yet, but I should weigh and see how much I've used in the two wedges so far, because I could weigh what I have left of this so far and figure it out much more specifically. I'll do that before I record next time. But that is so fun. I'm loving it. It's just a blast. All right. Now I'm really so excited to show this next project. And this is my cardigan that I've cast on. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to show what I'm doing here. Okay, so I was lucky enough to have a Dandelion and Dogwood advent calendar this last Christmas season. And their theme was Christmas roses, scenting Christmas roses. And Amy, who is one half of Dandelion and Dogwood, is one of my dearest friends. And so I kind of knew what their theme was and so on leading up to it. And I just was so in love with it. So all of the yarns in this collection are based on roses. And many of them are David Austin roses. And many of them are ones that Amy has grown in her own garden. And so that was just so wonderful. So I'm going to show you, this isn't going to be this is the box that they came in. So my Dandelion and Dogwood. And this was the full skein that came for Christmas Eve. And it's called oh no, that's not called New Shoots. That New Shoots is one of the colors I'm working on right now. Let's see. I think this one was called Scenting Christmas Roses. Yes. And this is what it looks like all skeined up. Oh, and this is a glitter. I don't know if the glitter is not showing up on the camera. Oh, but it's beautifully glittery. Well, I thought about doing a different, like an Advent shawl of some sort. I actually did knit. I had two Advent calendars. One was from my dear friend Margaret, and not from Margaret. Sorry, I'm lying. That was the year before. From my sister Deborah. And I ended up using hers for an Advent shawl. It was oh gracious, what was it? It doesn't matter. It was a wrap. It was also by Amy Taylor S. Studio. And so I decided I wanted to save these yarns and make a cardigan out of them. And so I took them all out of the order that they came in, and I created kind of a fade. So you're seeing all the palest yarns here on the top layer, and then it gets into the deeper colors at the bottom. So I'm fading it from light down into the deeper colors. But like some of these, here you can see a little glimpse of some of those deep, oh, they're so beautiful. Anyway. And I have started knitting a cardigan that I am doing a fade with. And of course, it's hard to see. It's all rolling up. That's kind of a pain. But if you can get an idea, this is how I am fading it in. This first color was called Desdemona. And this one is called New Shoots. And it's got the little bits of green in it. I wanted to put that up at the top because I just think it's so pretty. Oh, it's just so lovely. And then I will go into Emily Bronte will be next. Oh, so pretty. I wish you could see the sparkle. This is a raglan cardigan, and I am designing it as I go. I say designing. I mean, yeah, because it's just going to be stockinette and a raglan cardigan. But I was thinking about how I knit quite a few cardigans, and I usually like fingering weight cardigans, and I really want one that is specifically just kind of my go-to, if that makes sense. I wanted to have a cardigan that is all the numbers that fit me the best. So knowing how many stitches to cast on, what rate to work my increases, how many rounds I like before I divide for the sleeves, things like that. So my goal is to kind of try and create that so that then if I want to knit something with texture, I can throw a texture pattern in. If I want to add a fun lace panel on the front or down the back or along the bottom, I could do that and always know what my base pattern is. I mean, I do that for socks. I have my go-to formula for socks. So I want that for a cardigan. So that is what I am working on. So when I say designing, a lot of this is referring to other patterns that I have knit in the past that I know fit me well, or that didn't quite fit the way I would like to. And so I know how to tweak it to try and find the numbers that are my go-tos. And I figure a raglan shape is the best place to start that. So here's my raglan increases happening. I am using make one left, knit one, and make one right for my increases. I really like the look of that increase at a raglan seam. And I am just fading one color into the next. And because these are 20-gram minis, I don't have a long period of time to fade through. And so by the way I'm fading is just single stripes. So I did my original color 1, and then I did a stripe, so down and back of color 2, and then back to color 1, and then back to color 2, and then back to color 1. And then I was ready to move on and do color 2. So that's how I don't know. Let's see if you can see. I think you can see that. So here's the speckle. Here's the solid, then speckle, then solid, and then into just the speckle. And that's how I am fading. I am knitting this on a US size 4 needle, which is a 3.5 millimeter. Am I telling you the right thing? Yep, that is correct. I do like the fabric, and I think it's going to be lovely. And again, I wish you could see the sparkle. There is a lot of silver sparkle in there, but it's just not picking up on the camera. So I'm very excited. This will get quite down to deep colors at the bottom. So let's see, maybe I can show you some of the colors that will be toward the end. So these are kind of the colors that will end up at the bottom of the sweater. I am going to see how things go with the body. I may end up using either dyeing a skein of yarn or using an undyed skein of yarn to work the cuff of the bottom ribbing of the sweater, the cuffs, and the button bands. I say button bands. It's unlikely I will put buttons on this. My goal is to make this a cardigan that I will just wear open. But kind of, for lack of a better term, we'll call it a button band. I have numbered my yarns so I know what order they go in. So I just wanted to make sure I put those back in the order from which they came. So this is how much I have left. It's time for me to stripe in my next color. And I'm just really excited about this. I think it's going to be really fun. A way to use treasured yarn from my good friend and just beautiful colors. I'm really excited about that. So I will keep you posted on that one as well. And I'm just keeping the project in the box for now. Isn't that fun? So much fun. Okay. My last little project is just the baby beginnings. I just cast it on this morning. I want to show you this bag because it's so cute. Look how cute this bag is. I bought this bag from Little Robin Cottage. She has just some really darling bags and charms and things like that. And it was just so perfect for Valentine's Day. Isn't it just the cutest? So fun. And I just have the babyest little cast on for a pair of socks for my husband. He is not the biggest hand knit sock wearer, but he wears them on Sundays because I told him he needs to wear his hand knit socks on Sundays. So when he gets ready for church, he always wears his hand knit socks. So I've just cast that on. I am using I think this is the spruce colorway. Make sure I'm telling you spruce. This is Candy Shop Yarns. A simple syrup base in the spruce colorway. Quite daring for my husband because it's not blue or gray. I always say my husband likes to wear 4 colors. He wears blue, he wears gray, he wears grayish blue and bluish gray. But now he's getting some not gray or blue socks. It'll be great. So, yep, just a little cast on. And I will be knitting a new sock design that I've been working on. I have already knit one sock, but I'm tweaking it a little bit. And so this is going to be a second one to see how my tweak to my stitch pattern works. But it's just starting with a simple cuff. And I knit a 60, my husband likes his socks very fitted. This is a 64 stitch count, but I knit it with a deeper heel so that the instep has more stitches in it, if that makes sense. Yes, so the gusset is longer in his socks, which just gives him more room up over his heel, but then comes back in nice and fitted. So really simple start, but always a good thing when you get to cast on a sock. I love that. I can't decide if I'm going to take this or my shawl or my cardigan with me. The class I'm teaching today is a writing class, as I mentioned, but today is our game day. So we're playing games like Scrabble. We have a game called Betrayal at House on the Hill, which is like a choose your own adventure type game. We have a Pride and Prejudice trivia game. We're just doing all kinds of games that have anything to do with words or stories or anything. I have something called story dice, which are a collection of dice where one has different pictures on it for different settings. Another die has pictures for characters. Another one for, I can't remember, different plot lines. And you are supposed to roll the dice and then make up a story based on the different things that come up on the dice. So we'll be bringing that. Anyway, so the point is I get to bring knitting because the kids will all be playing games. All right, on to my book recommendation for the week. I just finished this morning and really enjoyed it. It is called The Survivors by Jane Harper. And I listened to this. I checked it out through my library and listened to it. And oh, I really enjoyed it. So it's definitely a whodunit. It's a mystery. Again, this was one that was so wonderfully engaging and you couldn't stop listening or reading. You want to just keep going. So I'd call it a page turner. I did not see the ending coming. And it was not full of gratuitous violence and sex and bad language. So that was an extra thumbs up for me there. The story did its job without having to fill it with all of that. The story was very engaging. It takes place in Tasmania and it's in a small town called Evelyn Bay. And the characters were very believable and enjoyable. I really enjoyed that the main character was male, but written from a female writer, which you don't see all the time. A lot of authors tend to stay writing from the perspective of kind of what they know, but she did a really great job of writing from this male character's perspective. It was really well done. And let's see, what else did I want to say? I'm trying to, I thought there was a way for me to, I'm not, let's see. I was just trying to read the description of the book, but it's not pulling up. The narrator is Australian, so I really enjoyed the accent. I enjoyed the setting. It made me so want to go spend time in a seaside town. In October, we did a family trip along the Pacific Northwest of the U.S., Washington coast, Oregon coast, down into Northern California. And so I could picture, even though it's not in the U.S., this takes place in Tasmania off the coast of the mainland of Australia. It was, I don't know, just reminiscent of that kind of seaside town where it's touristy during the summer, and then in the off season, it would tend to get really, you know, just the locals that would be there and kind of be more low key. And it was just, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. So I would highly recommend Jane Harper, The Survivors. And I am definitely, it says that she also has another book called The Dry. I haven't done much research into this author. She's new to me. So I'm excited to read more of her books because this one was great. I really, really enjoyed it. So recommend. So I think that's everything that I have for you today. Hopefully I'll be able to continue with once a week because I did find one of the things that's really nice about podcasting on my own, not everything is, I really miss podcasting with my sister in lots of ways. But one of the things that's nice is when she and I would record a podcast together, one of us was having to traipse with all of our projects and props and, you know, things like that to the other home. And there's a lot more to coordinate. And so with it just being me, it feels pretty light and easy to do comparatively. So I will hopefully be back with you next week and give you an update on my shawl and cardigan and so on. And hopefully another book recommendation. I have been reading like crazy this year. In fact, my youngest daughter, Abby, and I have been racing, and she is winning by far. So I had told her that I write down all the books that I read every year. And so she decided to do that. And then as we were going along, she read so much in January. I'm like, Abby, you are killing it. You are reading so much more than I am. And that gave her the idea of being a competition. We both are motivated by that. She apparently more than me. Also, she has less responsibilities than I do. She is almost 15 years old. And so I have read 12 books so far this year, but Abby is on 25. She's finishing up number 25 right now. So she's killing it. Of course, I do tell her that if we were counting page count, I would be winning. We're not counting page count. We are only counting book count. So hopefully I will have another book recommendation for you next week. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great week. If you have enjoyed this, I hope you will subscribe or click the like button, leave me a comment, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.